Hey guys, Martin here, bringing another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so we have a world tournament starting tomorrow on both Global and JP. So this is the first time, and of course will be ongoing, I guess, from now on, as the once we've passed the worldwide celebration, which is the next big celebration for both versions of the game will then be synced. So yeah, this is going to be the case going forward. So the worldwide celebration, obviously still a couple of weeks away, but the world tournament starting tomorrow. Now, the interesting thing is, because I don't know how they'll change this in the future, because one of the things that we've wondered about for the global schedule is, are they going to change the times of events? But it seems like, at least for the world tournament, at least according to the data in the data download that we have available as of right now, they aren't changing the time that the events begin. So that means that the world tournament starts on global an hour and a half before it starts on JP. Now, it still remains to be seen. I haven't seen in the data. The information probably is there. The world tournament on JP could potentially still only be 2 days, whereas global is 3. But it starts an hour and a half after the global one. So all these EZAs and everything that we're getting is actually available as soon as the world tournament starts, which means technically the 3 world tournament EZAs that we're going to talk about are available on global 90 minutes before they come out on JP. So I'll be live in the morning tomorrow. I'll be getting the showcases for these units done and put out straight away so that we can see what they're like. I always end up with some EZA medals spare. Some of these world tournament characters, it's not worth doing their EZAs, so I haven't done all of them, so it means I always have some spare medals, and when the new ones come out I can get them EZA'd straight away. So the interesting thing about this world tournament is we are actually finally getting a new world tournament card, because this is something we've been wondering about for a while, that like we've been getting awakenings for some of these older SSRs that don't have them, and of course we're getting EZAs at a pretty quick pace, but we haven't been getting any new cards. So this is something we talked about on the podcast recently, is like, well, what's going to happen once they've awakened all the world tournament units? Like, are we just not getting any more? But yeah, we are getting our first new one, which is a Yamcha from, I think, is he on the Dragon Ball Saga category? He is, yeah. So he is from OG Dragon. I wasn't sure if he's supposed to be from later on, like the 23rd World Tournament Saga, but yeah, containment with special technique Yamcha. He's a super tech type lead. Now, bear in mind, he is going to be an SSR that doesn't have an awakening. But some of these later World Tournament SSRs that they released were decent. Like the Tech Super Saiyan Gohan that was a stacker was pretty good on release. This guy raises attack and defense of 1 turn, supreme damage, medium chance to stun. So not bad super attack effect. Attack and defense 150, medium chance to dodge, medium chance to crit. Additional attack and defense 20% per tournament participant ally self-excluded on the team up to 100. So it means you need 5 other allies other than him. So basically the whole team in order for him to get his full buff. Attack and defense 100% when performing a super per world tournament ally self-excluded in the same turn. So if you have 2, obviously if you are building that full team to get that first part of his passive maxed out, you're going to have 2 well, I suppose actually no, it's world tournament, not participant allies. But if you have 2 world tournament allies on rotation with him, that's 200% attack and defense when performing a super, which is pretty good. Key +2, additional chance to dodge, 10% per turtle school ally attacking in the same turn, and then additional attack 100% and chance to crit 50% when HP is 86% or less. So he seems like a character that could be designed to run with the Tech 23rd World Tournament Goku, because obviously they are tournament participants, world tournament, and a turtle school ally. So he certainly seems interesting, but he is just a base SSR. I wouldn't expect anything too crazy out of this guy, but of course he's the world tournament reward, so we won't get any copies of him until the end. Well, actually I think you get 1 copy guaranteed as you get through a certain number of the wins, but there won't be multiple copies available of him until the end. Now the EZAs, we have the Super Saiyan 2 Great Saiyaman, and we have the Tech Cell. Now these guys, when they came out, were pretty much carbon copies of each other except for Super or Extreme, and now they've added some other abilities to them, which interestingly enough, the Cell I think seems to be quite a bit better. So Super Saiyan 2 Great Saiyaman greatly raises attack and defense for 1 turn, does supreme damage and lowers attack and defense. Lowering attack is obviously useful in some events now, which is good. Greatly raising attack and defense is good. He gets Key 3, attack and defense 180, additional attack and defense 20% with each attack performed up to 58%. So he's got to do 3 attacks to be fully built up. Superclass allies 3 key, attack and defense 30%, and then an additional 10% for characters who belong to Defenders of Justice or tournament participants. So he could be good on a tournament participants team. Defenders of Justice, obviously, like with Jiren, characters like STR Videl getting her EZA on JP. He gets an additional attack and defense 58% when there's an extreme class enemy. Extreme class enemies attack -20 and defense -58. Launches an additional super when facing only one enemy, and guards all attacks when facing 2 or more enemies. So the guards part is kind of useless, but launching a guaranteed additional super when you greatly raise defense is obviously quite good. And we are going to be facing one enemy most of the time. Sadly though, a lot of the newer events coming out, we're fighting super class enemies, so him losing out on this extra defense and the enemy debuffing is a little bit unfortunate. But there are still events where you'll be able to use him that this will come into play and be quite useful. Obviously for Super Battle Road he's going to have guard, which is quite nice. So he's definitely not terrible on paper, but bear in mind he's going to have raw defense and raw defense only, right? In tough events against one boss, no guard, no damage reduction. It certainly doesn't seem completely terrible. But then we have Cell, who has massively raised attack and defense for 1 turn. So he trades the attack lowering for even bigger raise of his attack and defense, which honestly I think is much better. He gets attack and defense 200%, which is a little bit more than Gohan but no key. Extreme class allies 3 key and attack and defense 30%, plus an additional 10% for artificial life forms or tournament participants. So interestingly enough, he could be run fairly well with a lot of these Boo characters that got their EZAs during the Golden Week celebration. Additional attack and defense 100% when attacking if there's a superclass enemy. Superclass enemies attack -20 and defense -60. So of course, unlike Gohan, this guy's going to be really good in the Supreme Battle Spectacle or Supreme Magnificent Battle stages because we are fighting superclass enemies. And then he gets damage reduction of 30% when facing only one enemy. So he's got a decent start of turn stats. If we're fighting a superclass enemy, he obviously gets a little bit of a buff. He massively raises on super, which is a 100% raise, and then has 30% damage reduction. So if you build this guy for full additional and you're getting that second super, that's another 100% raise. He could actually be relatively tanky. And then against multiple enemies, if we are using him in Super Battle Road or something, he does get an additional super, which then, of course, is another massively raised to his stats. He just then doesn't have the damage reduction, but he certainly could still be very, very good. So Cell and Gohan both seem interesting. Cell does seem that little bit better because, of course, damage reduction is better than getting an additional super and just getting a little bit of extra raw defense. And then we do have the Tech Cyborg Tao getting an EZA as well. He greatly raises attack and raises defense for 1 turn, supreme damage, and a 70% chance to stun. So obviously useful in events where that is relevant. Attack and defense 200% and attacks guaranteed to hit when performing a super. I mean, that can be useful in some of these events now where the enemy can dodge. An enemy is hit by his super attack, he reduces damage received from that enemy by 50%. And this is quite a good ability. It's annoying that he doesn't just have flat out 50% damage reduction, because it means he can't go in slot 1 and he won't be great against AoEs. But once he's hit an enemy with his super, he has 50% damage reduction, and they can't dodge it because his attacks are guaranteed to hit. So I was going to say, characters that have this ability, if they get dodged, it then doesn't do anything. But he is guaranteed to hit, so that is good. Key 1 up to 4, and attack and defense 50% up to 200 with each attack received. So he's got to take 4 hits to be fully built up. And then key 1, attack and defense 100% when there's an Earthlings or Tournaments participant enemy, which is interesting because, of course, for the Universe Survival Saga Supreme Magnificent Battle stages, you will be fighting a tournament participant enemy, so that's quite good. And then guaranteed crit when there's a Turtle School enemy. So obviously any of these events now for the Blue Zone stages where you're fighting a Goku, he's going to be getting guaranteed crits. So that's certainly very good. So those are the 3 World Tournament EZAs and a new World Tournament card. We do also have Link Skill Orbs for the first time are going to be included as rewards for the World Tournament. So that certainly will be interesting. I don't know how people feel about a World Tournament right now. We are in a bit more of a quiet period in terms of the big celebrations. Of course, Global is just pumping out content. It might even literally be a few days after the World Tournament ends, we end up getting part 2 for the Topo celebration. But we do also have, at the same time that the World Tournament releases, we're getting the sub-EZAs from the Topo celebration. So the AGL Super Saiyan Gotenks, who greatly raises defense in 1 turn, does supreme damage to all enemies with a high chance to stun. So he's an AoE with a high chance to stun, really good for Super Battle Road. Additional, he gets attack and defense 150%, additional attack and defense 150, and a crit when facing only 1 enemy. Additional defense 150 and gets a guaranteed additional super attack when facing 2 or more enemies. So regardless of 1 or 2 enemies, he does still get the defense, which is good. He's a time limit support for 3 key and 50%. So this can be very good for some of those teams with like the big fusion characters on. He gets additional attack and chance to dodge 10% with each attack performed up to 50%. So he doesn't start off with any dodge chance, but once he's done 5 attacks, he has a 50% chance to dodge. So that is quite good. Greatly raising defense and getting additionals is a good combo. So this guy could be interesting more so as a floating support for some of these fusion teams, or obviously useful for Super Battle Road with the AoE and the stun. Then we have the Super Saiyan 2 Great Saiyaman. This guy greatly raises defense in 1 turn, supreme damage to the enemy, raises attack for 3 turns. So he can get a multiple stack on that. It is a 50% raise as well, so he could be stacking up a couple of times. Attack and defense 180, additional key 1 up to 3, attack and defense 60 up to 180 per Defenders of Justice or Exploding Rage ally self-excluded on the team, depending on which category has more members. So you have to have 3 allies that aren't him, the Defenders of Justice or Exploding Rage, and it can't be a mix, which is kind of annoying. He gets a guaranteed crit when there's a Buu Saga enemy. He gets an additional 180% attack and damage reduction 30% when there's an extreme class enemy, so that's good. 50% HP recovery if HP is 30% or less at the end of the turn when there is an extreme class enemy. So again, he kind of has the same issues as the STR one that's getting an EZA, where a lot of these bosses that we're getting now are super class. And then he gets an additional attack that has a high chance to become a super. So with the hidden potential, he could super 3 times in 1 turn, which gives him, of course, these stacks for his attack. So there are certain situations where he could be kind of useful, but I'm not expecting him to be super crazy. We have the Int, Topo, and Pride Troopers. Obviously, if you pulled Topo, if you're planning to summon for AGL Jiren, this guy really, really good for that Universe 11 / Special Pose team. He raises attack and defense in 1 turn, supreme damage, and greatly lowers attack and defense. He has attack and defense 110, additional attack and defense 110 when there are 3 or more Universe 11 allies on the team, additional attack and defense 110 when performing a super, and guards all attacks when there's another Universe 11 category ally in the same turn. Gets a guaranteed crit when all allies in the same turn are Universe 11 or Special Pose, and then gives Universe 11 or Special Pose allies 3 key, attack and defense 50%, and chance to crit 11%. So basically, as long as you have the right sort of setup, especially if you are running a full Universe 11 team, 330% attack and defense start of turn with guard, raising attack and defense on super, and providing support. So these guys can be very, very good for Topo's team and buffing him, and of course the LR Jirens and the STR Dispo, who's really good if you got him from the UI Goku banner. So this guy, very, very good EZA. And then last but not least, the physical Ribrienne. As much as a lot of people don't like Ribrienne as a character, this unit is actually pretty good, especially next to the tech Ribrienne Trio LR. So she does supreme damage to the enemy, raises attack and defense for 6 turns, which is really good because you can get multiple stacks of this within a few turns, and it is a 50% raise for both. Attack and defense 80% when performing a super, additional key 1 per key sphere obtained, which is weird for a TUR to have, but randomly changes key spheres of a certain type, physical excluded, to rainbow key spheres, so any non-physical orbs can get made into rainbow when there's 2 or more Peppy Gals allies on the team. Additional attack and defense 22% per key sphere obtained. Additional attack, defense, and chance to dodge 22% per rainbow key sphere obtained, which, bear in mind, she does create up to 88%, so you can only get 4. I mean, it's rare you can get 5 rainbow orbs anyway, but if you can get 5, they don't actually give her any additional buff. But bear in mind, if you're getting, like, say, 3 rainbow orbs even, that's still a 66% chance to dodge, as well as an extra 66% attack and defense, which is good. A guaranteed additional super with 3 or more rainbow orbs. So if you're getting those 3 orbs with the 66%, you also get an additional attack and defense raise. And then she has the giant form condition, which is just a rare chance to transform into the giant form, which of course can be useful as well for the abilities of like blocking out enemy super attacks and stuff. So she can be really good, especially next to the Ribrianne trio. I've seen screenshots of her getting up to ridiculous numbers, especially if you get a large amount with orbs of her, because a couple of turns in with a few stacks on this super attack effect, her numbers can actually get up to a pretty crazy high level. So Ribrianne is actually very good. This guy very good, this guy not the best but doesn't seem completely terrible, and Gotenks kind of in the same boat, pretty decent but not like anything top tier. Tao seems interesting but not necessarily useful in a ton of like teams and stuff. Cell seems really good. I think fitting him into a team with a bunch of Buu characters, or even on like worldwide chaos type teams with like Zamasu and Goku Black units, he'll be really good. And then the Saiyaman 2, potentially good but not as great. And Yamcha, of course, an unawakened SSR, so has potential, but is nothing crazy right off the bat. So this is all the new stuff coming out tomorrow with the start of the World Tournament and the sub EZAs. Bear in mind as well that the sub EZAs, their medals can be pre-farmed. None of the EZAs are available now, so you can use your EZA keys because they're not really useful for anything else. This guy needs the physical Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks medals. It's always 12 bronze, 20 silver, 12 gold, and 12 rainbow. It's the same for all of them. He needs physical Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. This guy needs the Int Ultimate Gohan. Topo needs the Dispo medals that you get from the Topo and Dispo one, which funnily enough means you also get the Dispo medals, but you can't use them for anything. And then Ribrianne uses the physical MVP 17. Those EZAs all come back tomorrow if you don't want to pre-farm them with keys, but just bear that in mind that if you have nothing else to do for the rest of the day today, and you've got those EZA keys that can only be used for that, it's not like you're wasting stamina or keys that you could use to do something else. You could go ahead and pre-farm those. So let me know what you guys think down below. Do you have the medals pre-farmed? Are you going to pre-farm them? Which of the EZAs are you looking forward to the most? What do you think of the World Tournament units? Let me know all of that down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out all the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.